Look at all these rumors surrounding me every day. Just need some time to get away from it, from all these rumors. Can't take it no more. My best friend said there's one out there about me and the girl next door. Hey guys, it's Wahima, but just call me Wah. Melanated! Welcome to another episode of 90 Day Fiancé. Well, I guess it isn't another episode. Welcome to my 90 Day Fiancé Season 6 supplementary video. In this video, I want to talk about some of the things that are happening about the couples too. Some of the things that are happening to the couples outside of what TLC and the show is showing us. The first thing I want to ask is, where the hell is Pedro? Like, we know where Jorge is, and we know why Jorge isn't in any of Anfisa's stuff. And we also hope that when Jorge gets out of prison, they go on Love After Lockup. I mean, it would make Love After Lockup season 3 or season 4 whenever he's gonna get out. Anyways, Pedro is not at all in any of Chantel's Instagram posts. And I've been worried about this for a long time, ever since, honestly, the end of that season. Katie Not Holmes always has a little bit of tea. She posted something with Chantel and Nicole when they were having that fight in the Dominican Republic, where Chantel started cussing like a weirdo. And she's never cussed anybody in her life. Like, stupid ass whore. Like, I'm so dumb. And somebody asked Katie where Pedro was, and Katie said that she heard that they are separated. So I imagine Pedro is back in the DR, like starting that business he said he was going to start. I mean, this whole situation was just so drama. And if I'm being real honest about it, in my personal opinion, it's because Chantel doesn't know the boundaries between her marriage and her parents. I don't honestly think that anything that Pedro was doing was wrong. I understand that it made her upset, and I think that he needed to acknowledge that it made her upset, and he needed to figure something out to appease his wife. But not because I think he was wrong, but because that's his wife, and I think that he should try to give her what she wants or whatever you're supposed to do in a marriage. Like, I have no idea. You know, I mean, I don't understand. Like, some of you guys are gonna argue with me because you guys think of marriage as being one thing. I think of marriage as being a little bit different. I think of it as being a partnership where you have individual people who come together. I don't necessarily agree that all the money that I make belongs to him and all the money that he makes belongs to me. I think that we need to come up with some kind of joint account with certain monies to pay for certain things. But like, if I'm spending my spare money to send back home to my family or to help my family out, I think I would be a little annoyed if my husband had a problem with that. Shouldn't be this thing that's causing a chasm in our lives unless we don't have any money as a couple because you're giving it back to them. If we can't do anything and you're not contributing anything to our lives besides just the basics, then we'd have to have a conversation about it. Anyways, that's just my opinion, and I know everyone's gonna have a different one, which is fine. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about that I didn't mention at all in my last video because I got so sidetracked with all the other ish that was happening with this couple, we're going to talk about Kalani and Asuelu, and we're going to talk about the fact that Asuelu thinks that condoms are for slut people. That idea in itself is just so ludicrous that he thinks that. And I'm not saying that he's wrong, because obviously that must be like culturally what condoms mean to him and wherever it is that he grew up in Samoa. But for you to think that condoms are only for people who are promiscuous is really, you should wear them if you don't want kids or STDs. I mean, you can still get an STD with a condom on. I mean, if it's skin to skin contact, girl, there are some sneaky STDs, but like, that's problematic. And everyone's laughing at it and we think it's funny, but think about an entire island of people who think that using condoms is for slut people. That means that people aren't using condoms, even if they are slut people. Like, they aren't using them, which is a problem. That's a problem. Like, there are probably a lot of children out there whose fathers aren't in their mother's lives, or like, you know what I'm saying? And then, like, obviously we know that Asuelu wasn't a virgin, right? I mean, maybe he was, but they didn't mention that. And so if he's had sex with other women and then had sex after her because she said that he cheated on her, did he not use a condom with that woman he had sex with afterwards? Or how far did the cheating go? Like, was it did he actually have sex? Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, Kalani went to Samoa and had unprotected sex with a guy from another country who doesn't use condoms. That means that he hasn't used it with any women that he's had sex with. And thank God he doesn't have an STD. Like, that's so scary. It's so scary and problematic. I mean, it's funny, but like, it's also like crazy. Like, no, it's not only for slut people. Can you imagine people just not using condoms because you don't want the stigma of being called a slut, so you just don't use one? What? That's not true. No. I like have been thinking about wanting to like send flyers to Samoa and being like, use condoms, you're not a slut person. Use condom, you're a healthy individual who wants to have sex, and that's fine, but use a condom. It's not about being a slut, it's about protecting yourself and being a safe adult. Do they need help? Is there a foundation? Can I send some money? How can I help them? I've heard a lot of conversation about this recently, about people talking about guys who don't want to use condoms. And don't get me wrong, I have run across them and I'm just like, excuse me, excuse me, what? Okay, what? And it's so weird when they're like somebody you've never been with and you're just like, that's fucking disgusting, bro. Like, why would you even suggest that to me? We're strangers. Sometimes people don't find out they have HIV until 6 months after they actually contracted it because it doesn't show up, and like, no, no, no. Anyway, so the next thing I want to talk about is Ashley and Jay. So we all know that some friend of Ashley's, I think it was Nat Nicole, decided that they were going to leak a story about her to the tabloid. So in order for her to combat that after she heard it was going to happen, she went to like a prominent 90 Day Fiancé blogger who I've never heard of, which is like Jay something or other, to go ahead and drop the tea on that. And she sent over all the information from him and then told him to go ahead and release it because she would rather him do it than the way maybe a tabloid would spin it. But so there's a couple of things, there's two things that are happening in this scenario that I find weird. Let me just tell you the whole thing. So the whole thing is that Ashley was 19 years old and she was on her way to work. It's about 5:30 p.m. when this guy came up to her and put a blade up against her throat and then forced her into the passenger seat of her own car after he had tried to rob her and she said to him she didn't have any money. So then they drove around for a while and then ended up parking somewhere. He tied her hands up with zip ties. Then he put her in the back seat while she was tied up and he proceeded to rape and threaten her. He told her he was going to kill her. She tried to convince him not to, but he kept saying, you know, I don't want to go to jail, so I might as well kill you because if I let you go, then you're going to tell on me. So she had to like convince him, and somehow during that interaction she gnawed through the zip ties and broke free and like ran out of the car and slid down an embankment and like waded or swam through a river to get away from him, right? So she ends up getting away from him. She contacts the police, she lets them know, and they end up making an arrest. The person that was arrested was in jail for 4.5 months before DNA testing proved that it wasn't him. So he was released. 4.5 months for a crime you did not commit. And it took them 4.5 months to do a DNA test to prove that it wasn't you. Okay, so then that's done. Then cut to a couple months later, Ashley is at a festival or something, and she sees a guy, and she points him out to the police, and she's like, that's the guy that raped me. So they then arrest him, and then he sat in jail for a month before DNA tests exonerated him. A month! Like, that is so crazy. So the two men who were accused of raping Ashley sat in prison for at least a month before DNA testing exonerated them. For all of the hullabaloo that we go through over rape cases and charging and all this, you'd think that if they had DNA evidence, that the first thing they would do was test the DNA. Does it take a month to get DNA testing? What does Maury Povich use? I mean, and this wasn't in like 1982. This was in like 2005 and 2006. I mean, I'm getting beside the point, but like that makes me really mad. I mean, that person's life is disrupted. You might be thinking, oh, well, they didn't do it, they got off. But for 4 months to sit in prison being known as a rapist, you don't know what would happen to them in prison. The psychological damage that happened to those two men who got falsely accused of rape and then put into prison and weren't even like exonerated until a month later, and 4.5 months for the other guy, that is insane. Okay, but anyways, let's get back to Ashley. So about 1.5 years later, the guy who actually kidnapped and raped her and attempted to rob her and threatened her went into jail for robbery. And he submitted his DNA, you know, because he was in prison. It came up as a match as the person who actually raped her. Finally had a happy ending for her, and I'm like, I think she's really brave, and like, I'm like, I think that's probably why she's so into self-defense, and that's one of the first things that we learned about her. Okay, so anyways, that's what happened to Ashley. The last thing I want to talk about is Larissa. Now, there has been a lot of mom shaming to Larissa, and let me tell you why. So I'm gonna read it for you just so that you guys know what I'm talking about. It isn't just me. Okay, hi everyone. I would like to address something about my kids. I really did not want to talk about them because they are young and they can't make choices yet. I don't know if they want to be exposed or not, but once I'm really tired of these rumors in respect to my followers, and I will make a brief statement about what happened in my past. I was in college studying to become a nurse against my father's desire, and I interrupted school to move in with my former boyfriend to another state and start a new life together. We lived together for 2 years, had a son, and the relationship did not work out. We had a very bad breakup. Once the father was not paying child support and my family was not talking to me, I found myself financially and emotionally unable to take care of my son. I spent all my savings and tried everything to get a job. But in Brazil, that's hard, as everyone knows. Life can be very hard sometimes. For this reason, I decided to let his aunt adopt him, and she was always there for me, and she loved him very much. The decision breaks my heart today, and is a very delicate matter for me. It is a regret that I had to live life without, and I don't need everyone to point fingers in my face. I suffered enough already. I really hope I can reconnect with him one day when he's old enough to understand that I made the best decision I could. Years later, I was in another relationship and I had a daughter. Once again, I did not have the support of the baby dad. This time, I was financially capable of taking care of her, making a minimum wage and working at a clothing store. I also reconnected with my father, who watched her for me while I work. I always took care of her, and now she's with my father in Brazil temporarily. My father is a retired military man, and he and his wife are great grandparents. They have a lot of time for her. I talk to them every day on WhatsApp, and I plan to bring her to live with us very soon. I wanted to try to get my life here with Colt first, and I wanted to move to a big house to make sure the relationship will work out before I bring her. I also want to open my own business and be able to support my daughter, which to me is like, makes sense. So for everybody out there who's like, oh, she abandoned her kids, she did whatever, like, so I think that there's always this judgment about exactly how women should parent. And there is this idea that women are more responsible for the kids than men. And to a certain extent, I do agree with that. I think a woman carries the baby in her body, and I think she has a grander sense of everything that is needed. Now, whether or not she's equipped to fulfill the role is a whole other issue. And I think it's unfortunate that women are held to a higher standard when it comes to rearing their kids than men. If Larissa were a man, under the same situations and circumstances, we wouldn't be having this conversation about how she abandoned her kids in Brazil. Right or wrong, we wouldn't be. So for me, I'm not going to judge her, because if the best thing for her kids are to be with someone else, then I can only respect that. And I don't think it's fair, if she said that she couldn't take care of her son at the time, to judge her for that. And then her daughter, I mean, no, she's making a brash decision, but she wants to come to the US. And Colty isn't that bad. Like, as much as we make fun of him, I think she sees him as potential and as somebody that she can work with and somebody that she can, like, help to get healthier. Apparently, she's had conversations with him about being healthier, about losing weight, that he is self-conscious of his body and all this stuff. And she's willing to come here and work with him for that. But she didn't probably realize that she was going to run into the roadblock of Debbie and all of these things that she didn't think would stop her. Like, you know, she probably thought like, oh, okay, Colt's going to provide this life for me and I'm going to come here and help him. And it's not that. There's a lot of drama going on. I'm not saying she's a 100% angel in anything. I'm just saying that I want to give her the benefit of the doubt. I want to see what she's all about. If she does want to come here, the way every foreigner wants to come here and live, except for maybe Jay. I think Jay is the only person. I feel like Jay and Fernanda are probably the only two people of this season where like coming to the US really meant nothing to them, and they only came because this is the place where they have to be with their love. Like, right? That's what I think. So there's nothing wrong with her wanting to come to the US, personally. And I think for us to judge what she left behind is ridiculous. Like, let people live their lives. He's getting something out of it too. He surely was not going to get an American Latina to be with him in his current state. The only place that he was going to find a Latina with a body to come over here and give him what he desires is if he went outside of this country. So let's chew on that. Okay, you guys, so that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Let's have a kiki down in the comment section. Let me know what you think of all of these topics I talked about. Remember to be you, be true, and find your place. Bye.